Alright guys, so this is kind of a new series I do want to get started on my channel. This is kind of like tips and tricks for rebuilding MyLeague teams. So basically, if you don't know what my whole channel is about, basically I do rebuilding videos. I occasionally do a regular NBA video, but pretty much all it is just rebuilding videos. I try to win a championship with a team in 3 years. And today's video, today's new series, honestly, is we're just going to be going behind the scenes of really all my little tips and tricks that I do have of how to make this the easiest. Now, I'm not saying that I'm like the best rebuilder out there. I'm definitely not saying that. But I feel like I'm at the kind of the point with my channel where I'm almost at that like decent sized audience where enough people watch my videos that I could actually make a difference in how people do rebuild their teams, because I do get kind of a lot of questions. So this series, as I said, is really just about what I do to make sure not make sure really, but just to kind of show that I do win a championship. And it does kind of help me out a lot with just the whole settings I use and all the tips and all the tricks that I use. So we're gonna hop right into it. Also, I wanted you guys to leave comments in all of these, on all of the comment section of these videos, and I will put them up on the screen in the next tips and trick videos. And I'll show you guys, or I'll answer your questions or what I do with that scenario, or what player I would take there. Just leave me like a couple of players, couple of options, or really whatever you have to, or whatever you can't figure out about MyLeague and you need me to answer. So I'm more than welcoming for you guys to do that. But with that out of the way, let's hop in. So if we go, say we're just doing a regular 2016 MyLeague, say the draft hasn't happened yet, free agency hasn't happened yet, there's no trades. Basically what I would do is, so I keep autosave on. This is just because it keeps it so my team will like always save. I never have to worry about saving it by myself manually. It doesn't really matter. Custom roster, as I did say, if you turn this on, you can download any roster you want. You can type in the user player's gamer tag or just their roster name. You can download their roster. The season length is at 82. This is all just 7, just because this is how the real NBA does it. So fantasy draft you keep off unless you do want to do a fantasy draft. That's how I do all my fantasy drafts in those videos. Customized league is kind of off or on. If you want to do a historic team, that's also how you do it. If you turn on this, you can just swap out any team for any historic team, or you can just kind of change the conferences around. The salary cap, obviously, you do keep on unless it's like a historic challenge where you just want to turn it off. Salary cap value, this is kind of important. I turn this up to 7 or 75, just because this is how like the value of the salary cap. And then the salary cap inflation rate, I typically put up to 65 for a regular rebuild, and if it's a 2017 one, up to 70, just because the contracts go up because the level of talent goes up. So if we're just doing a 2016 rebuild, we keep it on 65, no point there. Hard cap, I do leave the same. Trade logic, I definitely keep on. Trade deadline obviously stays on. Financial trade rules stay on. Trade override stays off. CPU stays on. Trade approval goes off because I don't really care about what other teams do with other teams. Start with existing trades is definitely on. Keeps the original draft picks. If you turn it off, it gives every team the original draft picks on, or gives them it back. And if you keep it on, it say like, so like the 76ers will have the Lakers pick no matter what, even though if it's top 4 protected. I don't know, not going to get into that. But quarter length, this is just when I play. I typically put this to 10 minutes. Then when I sim is on 12, just so I do get the regular scores. Injuries, I typically turn off, but it's on occasionally. Like for a MyGM, with like a longer series, you would typically keep those on just because you want to continue the series. You kind of want to keep it realistic as possible. But for my unrealistic rebuilds, like I do typically on my channel, I do keep this off. Just because, I mean, I don't really want players getting injured. I mean, the whole thing is already unrealistic, so why make it like semi-realistic with injuries? It's just going to piss me off and possibly going to make my team lose a championship. So I guess there's your first tip or trick. Roster injuries are off. Injury severity, obviously, this doesn't matter if injuries are off. Progressive fatigue is on. Team chemistry is on. Gameplay difficulty is on Hall of Fame in case I do have to hop in. Simulators on 50. Trade negotiations on 50. Contract negotiations on 50. CPU resigning aggressiveness is all the way down to 0. This makes it so there are more free agents and you don't have to go hunting for trades, or you can at least go after some big name free agents. Like, for example, if you put this up to like 50, typically I feel like LeBron accepts his player option a little bit more. And I occasionally see Chris Paul or Blake Griffin in here when this is down to 0. I just actually started doing that kind of like a couple weeks ago. Morale stays on 50. Morale effect stays on 50. Chemistry difficulties, pretty much everything stays on 50. Trade frequency, I do bump up to 60 just because, I don't know, I like to see more trades, more players in different teams. With a MyGM series or a series that you're going to elongate, I would typically kind of keep that on 50 just so the teams don't, so it kind of seems like the real NBA and the teams don't switch up too much. Maybe I'd even turn it down. CPU injury frequency, if your injuries are off, it doesn't really matter for any of these injury things. Draft class quality, I do keep it 50. Progression rate, I put it 55 just so I can have some better rookies, because I do only go 3 years and only 2 years with the rookies, really, honestly, because I have to draft them after the first year. Player regression rate stays at 50. In-season trading effects 50. Non-financial ambitions, put this around 40. This is just so if your team sucks and you go after like LeBron, he's not going to want to resign with you just because your team sucks. So non-financial, that means that it's how good your team is currently. And then if you turn this all the way up, if you offer him a max contract and you have all 50 overalls on your team, he'll probably sign anyways. Normalized player to sim minutes, I just keep this off, honestly. And that is that for my settings. Typically, I have sliders saved for that, so I just load those in. Typically, I don't have to go through that every time. And then, so if we want to start out with probably the easiest team to rebuild that actually is a rebuild, it's not just like a dynasty build, I would actually do the Philadelphia 76ers just because of the assets they have and the picks that they have. And then when we get into this, you guys typically ask me about this a lot on my live streams or occasionally even in some of my videos. User team, if you're doing more than one team rebuild, you keep it all user teams. Typically, you can turn it to whatever team you're using, or just all user teams. I don't really change it because it doesn't really matter. The draft combine, I do keep auto, just because I don't want to have to deal with that midway through the season. Game participation, you do want to keep to manual, just so if you simulate it, it doesn't get all messed up, because trust me, I've used to do that. Pre-draft workout, I don't really care about that. In prospect scouting, I want that to be for my scout, and so I don't want to do that. And then my staff management, I keep as myself so I can hire my own head coaches. Lineup, I just keep this all to manual because I don't really ever do any of this except for like free agents and trade block, and I don't want them to put anyone on there automatically that I get trades for more than once. So those are my MyLeague automation settings. And if we hop in here for the draft class, if you want you're like not real players, you can just hit auto generate rookies. You can create a draft class, but you can go do that in the roster creator. And then what I do typically is I load my own draft classes. So these are all my own custom draft classes that I did make. Typically I just took or for most of them, I think the first I made the 2016 one by myself, and then for the 2017, 2018, I just downloaded a different one and then updated it to what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more kind of like my own touch, so I had kind of control of it. But if you don't have those, you can just download the top rated one. I'm on Xbox, so it's not, I don't get on the luxury of having Embrace the Paces draft classes. I know those are really good. Jared Bruh or something, I don't know, he has the most downloaded one, but I just typically do mine for 2016 because it does have like Ben Simmons. And then if we look at the rookies for that, like Chris Dunn, Brandon Ingram, Ben Simmons, Dragan Bender, Jaylen Brown, Henry Ellenson, that's how you get rookies in the game for all of you guys that are asking that. And then what I'd like to do typically before I start a video, I like to head over to the Trade Finder, look at my team. Occasionally I will put players up and see what I can get for them. That way I know what like they're worth. And then if we head over to the pick situation, I also like to check out the picks, make sure we have our first round pick. And then if I can get a better pick with the assets that I do have, I trade them. And the reason I say the 76ers are probably the easiest team to rebuild if you actually want to do a rebuilding is basically just because all the assets they have. They have a whole group of nice young players. They have a three-headed center monster. So typically I trade Embiid. I keep Noel, have him play at the power forward. And then I have Okafor play at the center. He turns like an 85 overall after 2 years. So typically that is what I do. And then the picks, obviously, if you want to trade it back, if you really care that much, you can. But I don't typically, unless it's like a My Jam series, something you want to keep realistic. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of it. If we want to go into anything else, this is just how you relocate. You choose a city, basically. I mean, there's a whole bunch of cities on here. Some are unrealistic that would ever get an NBA team. But, I mean, honestly, like Honolulu is not ever going to get an NBA team. Anchorage is ever going to get an NBA team. But kind of just for fun, just so you can have fun on your own MyLeague, you can design your team branding. That's like your logo and your colors and your team name. Your arena, obviously, I'm pretty sure you've all seen arena tips and tricks. And then uniforms, obviously, you can make them. You can download stuff from the 2K Share. Coaching, basically, right here is just your rotation of who you want playing. I'm pretty sure most of you should know this, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on it. But if you do have questions, I could possibly make another video about this. It's really just how many minutes your players get. And if you hit RT, or I forget what the button is on the PS4 controller, this is the bench depth. So if you want a 10-man rotation, change it to 10. Say I did want a 5-man rotation. I had like fatigue turned off. I hit rebuild, and it just goes straight to everyone getting a perfect amount of minutes because it is just the perfect amount of players. It's a 5-man rotation. This is completely unrealistic because no NBA coach ever runs a 5-man rotation. Let's put that back to 10. And then if we head over one more time, these are scoring options, basically who you want your number one option to be when you do score. So typically for a team, I don't really change them too often, but I would have the Okafor for this one. I really wouldn't set anything else. Then these are just your focuses, your tempos, really what you want to do once you get the ball, or what you're really targeting to do in a game. So That is it for coaching. If we go to scouting, I don't really check this out too much. This is just kind of team intel of your expiring contracts and what you want to do with your team. You don't actually have to change this. It does this for you automatically. And then you can check out what other teams do. This is how they have players in the trade block, so you could either go check those out if you wanted to trade for someone on their team, or it also shows who they're targeting for every team. I'm pretty sure LeBron's on most of these. Like really good players are on most of these. But if we go to prospect scouting, these are just the prospects. If you go over to DE rank and either hit X on an Xbox controller or at like square, I think, on a PS4, it shows you like their DE rank and what they should be drafted. And then if we go to mock drafts, these are the mock drafts that they do have before the season, so these are how you think your team's going to do. Big boards are really just the players and what they think their overall is. As I said, it's really the same thing. Draft board doesn't work until you are actually in the draft. Player comparison, you can just compare two players, their strengths and their weaknesses. I don't really ever use this. And team comparison, if you want to compare two teams, you can do that. Same with their coaches. So the training schedule is, I don't really use this too often, so I don't really know too much. Team training is more of a MyGM thing in case your players get pissed off and you have to like change how much they train, or if they're training too much or too less, you can change that for them. And then the standings, so obviously I check this out a lot during the season. This is what you are in your division, and then the conference, this is what matters for the playoffs. The top 8 seeds do make it in every playoffs, if you do not already know. And the power rankings is typically just what NBA.com, 2K Sports, and Mark Spears, yeah, that's who it is, thinks of your team. Typically if your team is trash, you will be like 29 or something terrible like that. We are like 20 on here for some reason. We are on 2K Sports, we are last, and we are second to last on Mark Spears. So they rank you before the season even starts. They rank you during the season. They do it really at every time they change it. And last year's standings, these are just the standings of last year's teams. And then statistic, once you simulate like a couple of games, it'll show you the league leaders in points, rebounds, assists. Player stats, these are your team only. This shows you how many points per game, how many rebounds per game, how many assists, steals, etc. your players on your team are putting up. Rookie report, these are just all the rookies in the league kind of going for the Rookie of the Year award. It varies by team, so if your team has more than one rookie, see how all my rookies are in order. I have Okafor, Embiid, McConnell, Rashawn Holmes, Christian Wood. Those are just all my rookies, and it's because the 76ers are the first team. Just because it's in alphabetical order. Obviously they start with a 7, so it goes numerically and then alphabetically, so it starts out with a number. And then if we go over to team stats, these are basically just our percentage of winning, our points per game difference, field goals made, field goals attempted, field goals percentage, and then all stuff like that. Awards, season awards, typically the player of the week, and for both the Eastern and Western conferences would be filled in. NBA records, this is just historic records. Typically these don't change too much because it's really all NBA legends. These are just team records per team of what players have put up. League history, these are just NBA championships, MVPs, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Years, Defensive Player, stuff like that. This is your team history. I believe if you make a trade or something, it does have the retired numbers, your last playoff appearance, and all of your like records and conference rank and titles and stuff like that. And these are just your settings, really. You can't really change these too much. Like, you can't change like the financial stuff about this. I don't really touch this because I already said it preseason. There's no really need to touch this. MyLeague, I don't really mess with any of this stuff, honestly. It's not really like worth it, just because it screws up your game, and I don't really ever touch this. I've only gone through this a few times. And then typically, if you do not have autosave on, you have to save it, or it just won't save. But if you guys don't know what this is, I just want to do like the main chunk of this last, and that is going to be it for episode 1 of this series. This is obviously your roster. In this mode, if you really want to, you can edit a player's position, you can edit his scoring abilities. It's kind of cheating, but I don't ever do that. You can release him if you want to free agency, and then after like I believe 3 days, if he's not signed, you will take a cap hit. That is with anyone on your team. And then if you go over to proposed trade, this is where you can say I want to put up Jahlil Okafor for Giannis Antetokounmpo. They would, I don't know if they'll do this. Yeah, they don't want to do it, but you can just throw in and sweeten some deals with picks. That is how I manually do trades. Player finder, if I say I just wanted to look up like LeBron, actually it's going to be his last name, so I have to type in James. So type in his name, and then you hit start, and then hit start again, and then all these James will come up, and then you can either hit trade or trade finder. You definitely can't get anything for LeBron. That's obvious. Trade finder, if these are players on your team or other teams, that's saying what the other teams would offer for your players, or what they would have, or you would have to give up to get their players or their picks. Works both ways. Contract extensions, in case you want to. This is actually a really helpful tip. I do this during the season because it's you take less of a cap hit actually if you do this during the season. Then you can go after big free agents, and you can use your MLE or mid-level exception, which helps out a lot more in the long run. Free agents, these are just the current free agents that aren't on teams. If you see me in like a tougher video where I want to be terrible or I don't have a position, I'll typically either sign Larry Sanders or Mario Chalmers or occasionally Gary Neal just to kind of fill a roster spot. Larry Sanders isn't on the team. I'm pretty sure he's retiring anyways. I have no idea if Mario Chalmers is on a team or not. I'm pretty sure he got injured in real life. So player contracts, these are your contracts. Is how much salary cap you're going to have. Typically, like, this is really high just because the 76ers are such a young team. That's why I say this rebuilding is so easy. Just because all you have to do here is typically during the season you have like anywhere between like $2 and $5, $6, $7, $10 million on your team. But with 42, that's going to leave you with so much money in the off season. Like if you look at other teams like 5, like -11, -35, but 42 is just ridiculous. And if you look at this, they have the team options here in blue and the player options in green. We have no player options. These are just for season by season. Like something like this with 2 blues would be a 2-year option. So you can one option, you either bring them back for 2 years or you don't bring them back at all, or you can try to sign them to a new contract. And then your staff, this is just really your coaching staff. If you want to fire someone during the season, you could. In theory, I don't do that typically just because it really doesn't work out. You typically get a worse coach, so I don't really do that. But that's really it. If you want to go to social media, this is just the mock drafts typically. And transaction report, this is either signing free agents, trades, or stuff like that really. Just all the NBA news all around. But over here, you can have target lists, add players you want. So if I wanted to put on like Giannis, I can put him on here. For this is typically just for free agency trade block. Anyone on my team, I can put on there. Untouchables, like if I want to put Julio Okafor as an untouchable, typically you only do that for like huge superstars like LeBron, KD, Steph, anyone in that nature really. And then this is the playoff picture that I have up during every video and live stream. And this is just social media. It's all real people typically, just fake tweets really about like what's going on in the NBA right now. But I guess that kind of wraps up episode 1 of NBA 2K16 MyLeague tips and tricks. Once again, leave your comments and I will go over them. I'll throw them up on the screen. I'll make sure to answer them for you guys. But I just want to do a general overcap or like an overview of what you have to go through before you actually set up a MyLeague. So this is what I typically go through every time. I don't really look at the stats honestly before the season even starts. Doesn't make any sense. I do that after the season. You guys can tell in most of my videos. But yes, definitely leave any questions you do have in the comment section. I'm actually going to be sending one season next video, one whole off season, one whole regular season with you guys and showing you just what I go through every single time. But this is a cool idea. I thought you guys would enjoy. I know I have some of my younger audience that don't really understand all of this, so I just wanted to explain it for you guys. Don't really want to have to reply to comments in like recent videos, just how to do this. So I thought this would be cool, thought this would be fun. But if you guys did enjoy, make sure to drop it a like down below. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I do actually post real MyLeague, not just tips and tricks. This is obviously episode 1 of this. But once again, leave your comments, your questions down in the comment section. I'll make sure to throw them up in the video and answer them. Thank you guys all so much for watching episode 1, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.